Personal Vendetta is a competitive, high-conflict, drafting and hand management card game for TCG admirers, comic book fans, and junkies for painful decisions. With too many options and too little time, you must strategically alternate between drafting, playing, and activating cards on your turns. Each player is a clone who exacts revenge against their duplicates in a biopunk, body horror setting. Choose to either play as a nameless, identical copy of each opponent, or specialize your identity with a unique persona card. Each persona's brain is fashioned from a clone of the original, but through a series of mental and physical upgrades and downgrades, has diverged to form a distinct individual. The cerebral differences between clones account for variations in personality and appearance, which are expressed through persona cards and through your decisions as a player. Each persona carries its own desires, fears, and motivations, which you must master to satisfy your thirst for vengeance. Your goal is to exterminate all other versions of yourself, proving that you are the only copy worthy of existing. Each clone begins with a fixed number of health points in two categories: physical health points called corpus, and mental health points called cerebrium. If a clone ever has 0 or fewer corpus or cerebrium, they die and are eliminated from play. When only one clone remains in the game, they are declared the winner. While this video should prepare you for your first session, I will not be covering 100% of the rulebook. Please reference the full rules for additional clarifications, examples, and detailed cases to answer any questions which may arise during gameplay. In addition to the rulebook found in the game box, you can also read an interactive copy of the rules on the Ad Atro website. The main components of Personal Vendetta are idea cards, which sit at the center of all actions clones can take throughout a game. Idea cards are divided into mechanically or thematically similar groups called sets, which can be distinguished by a name and icon in the lower left corner of each card. To begin setup, shuffle together at least 2 sets of cards from your collection into a single deck and place it face down in the center of the table. This deck is called your head and is shared by all clones during a game. Though a communal resource, this deck is referred to as your head because it represents the shared potential between all clones' duplicated minds. For your first game, I recommend combining the dual and melee sets, which you can identify by the set name and icon found in the bottom left corner of each card. Next, deal a face-up tableau of 4 cards extending outward from your head. These cards form a market of options available to all clones called headspace and represent the identical ideas currently at the front of each clone's mind. Give each clone 2 tick tokens, flipped face down. These tokens are a resource used to take actions and represent the amount of time available for a clone to think and act on their turn. Also give each clone 2 dials, one for corpus and one for cerebrium, each set to 20. Each clone adds 1 idea card to their thoughts from the top of your head. This is your hand and represents ideas which you alone can capitalize on during the game. Keep your thoughts hidden from other clones so they won't know what you're planning. Each clone designates a space in front of them for their condition. This zone is used for storing cards with permanent effects, called state cards. Each clone also designates a space in front of them for their memories. This zone is used for storing your discarded cards, called memories. The core game box also includes 4 oversized persona cards, which look like this. These cards introduce additional starting conditions and persistent effects, adding complexity to your experience. For your first game, I recommend that you omit these persona cards during setup. I will share optional rules for persona cards and other modules at the end of this video. Before I dive into the step-by-step details of Personal Vendetta's gameplay, I find it is helpful to provide context with a general overview of the experience. Personal Vendetta takes place over a series of turns until only one clone is left standing. Idea cards have a great variety of effects, but ultimately your goal is to inflict physical damage or mental damage on your opponents until they die. Achieve this goal by playing cards which inflict damage, but be careful. Each action demands sacrifice. The main currencies of Personal Vendetta are your health values, which are present in full at the start of each game, with no way for you to earn more. On a typical turn, you will spend resources available to you to play new cards from your thoughts, or to activate effects on state cards in your condition. Therefore, the effects of your cards will advance your agenda, while their costs will advance your opponent's agendas, slowly killing everyone involved with each move you make. Each turn, you will perform actions by spending ticks, a resource which represents the time you spend thinking and acting on your turn. Use your ticks to take new cards from headspace, play cards from your hand, and use effects on cards in your condition to strategically conquer your other selves. The basis of action is thought, which is represented in Personal Vendetta through idea cards. Idea cards are the only component required to play, and are therefore the most important aspect to understand. While the rules are simple to learn, complexity arises from the number of unique effects and interactions generated by ideas. Become familiar with the 3 types of idea cards and their common elements, and the remaining rules will fall into place with ease. Despite differences in graphic design, all idea cards share these elements. Starting at the top, each idea card has a name, which describes its theme and flavor, but does not affect gameplay, other than as a unique identifier of its attributes. Underneath a card's name are its discipline and type. The first word is the card's discipline and may be one of 2 values, physical or mental. This classification has no inherent effect on gameplay and can also be thought of as the card's suit. The second word is the card's type and may be attack, reaction, or state, and affects the manner in which it can be played. Ideas may be referred to by their discipline, type, or both. This idea card, for example, is a mental attack. In the upper left corner of an idea card, you will find an icon which visually summarizes a card's discipline and type. Underneath this icon, on top of either a cyan or magenta ribbon, is the card's cost. These icons depict the resources you are required to pay in order to utilize an idea card's effects. In order to play this card, for example, you must pay 1 tick. Elsewhere on an idea card, likely taking up the majority of the surface area not devoted to the illustration, is the majority of an idea card's text, which are called its effects. This is the collection of the card's consequences, both positive and negative, and your reward for paying its cost. Each paragraph constitutes a single effect, which combined comprise the effects of the idea. The effects of an idea can be found in a different location on the card, depending on its type, which I will explain in more detail in the next section. Finally, underneath the effects of an idea card is its flavor text. This text adds to the theme and flavor of an idea card, but does not affect gameplay. Now that you understand the anatomy of an idea card, here are some important distinctions between the 3 card types: attack, reaction, and state. Attack cards represent single-use maneuvers which aim to help you, hurt your opponents, or both. Play an attack card on your turn, resolve its effects, then add it to your memories. Identify an attack card by its icon, type, or the placement of its effects, found at the bottom of the card. Reaction cards represent a counter move to an opponent's decision. Unlike attack and state cards, react on any clone's turn in response to an action. After reacting, resolve the reaction card's effects, then add it to your memories. Most reaction cards are worded to encourage reacting to opponents' actions, but occasionally it may be to your advantage to react to your own action. Identify a reaction card by its icon, type, or the placement of its effects, found at the top of the card. State cards represent a permanent ability or affliction that affects a clone. Unlike attack and reaction cards, state cards persist for multiple rounds, generating an advantage for you over time. Play a state card on your turn, permanently adding it to your condition. If a state card is removed from your condition, add it to your memories. Identify a state card by its icon, type, or the placement of its effects, found on the side of the card. Ideas are important, but ideas alone cannot kill your enemies. In order to leverage an idea, you must act. Choose from 3 types of actions to develop and capitalize upon your ideas. Take ideas from headspace, play ideas from your thoughts, and activate ideas in your condition. Master the timing and choices of each action type to outmaneuver your opponents and claim victory. When taking an action, follow these steps. 1. Select action type. 2. Indicate card. 3. Make choices. 4. Pay costs. 5. Trigger and react. And 6. Resolve effects. Step 1. Select action type. There are 3 different types of actions. Take. Add an idea card from headspace to your thoughts. Play. Resolve an attack or state card from your thoughts. Activate. Resolve an activated effect on a state card in your condition. Select one of these options to begin. Step 2. Indicate card. All actions are rooted in ideas and begin with your selection of an idea card. Each action type, however, requires its idea to be chosen in a different manner. Take. Indicate the idea card in headspace you wish to take. Play. Set aside an attack or state card from your thoughts that you wish to play. Activate. Indicate the state card in your condition you wish to activate. Step 3. Make choices. Idea cards selected for play and activate actions may contain the word choose in their effect. If so, make any choices outlined by these effects at this time. For example, this card reads, choose a clone. They forget 2 idea cards. Step 4. Pay costs. Nothing worthwhile comes easily, especially the downfall of your enemies. All actions require a cost. However, each cost is determined differently depending on the action. Take. The cost for a take action is 1 tick. Note that this cost is always 1 tick, regardless of the card you choose. Play. The cost for a play action can be found in the upper left corner of the set aside idea card. We talked about this earlier. Activate. The cost for an activate action can be found before the colon in an effect on a state card in your condition. As an example, this card reads, pay 1 tick. Each clone loses 2 corpus. As an additional example, while this second card references a cost in its effect, it does not follow the cost::effect format at the beginning of the effect, and is therefore not an activated effect. At this time, it would be helpful to call out a simple difference in the visual language of costs versus resources to help you identify their differences at a glance. Costs show a resource symbol surrounded by a circle, like this, whereas resources show the icon bear, as seen here. Note that resources which appear in the cost banner of an idea card are always surrounded by a circle, but both costs and resources alike appear in effects. Now that you know when to pay a cost and how to identify one, here is a list of costs and resources to explain how to pay a cost and demystify the symbols found on idea cards. You can remember these symbols with the rules reference card. The first symbol represents a tick. During the start phase of your turn, you gain 2 ticks. To spend a tick for a cost, flip a tick token face down. This symbol represents corpus, your physical health. You begin the game with 20 corpus, and to pay corpus for a cost, decrement your dial accordingly. This symbol represents cerebrium, your mental health. You also begin the game with 20 cerebrium and spend it the same way as corpus. This symbol represents an idea card. Note how it is card-shaped. To pay an idea card as a cost, choose an idea in your thoughts and add it to your memories. In non-thematic terms, discard it. The next symbol is an idea card turned sideways, representing a state card. To pay a state card as a cost, choose a state in your condition and add it to your memories. Finally, this symbol represents a memory and depicts a card sinking into water. To pay a memory as a cost, choose one of your memories and add it to the bottom of your head. Now that you are familiar with all types of resources and costs, you are armed with enough information to complete this step, paying costs for your action. Reduce your resources by the amount required by the action, then proceed to the next step. If you arrive at this step in error, say it turns out you were unable to pay a cost, don't fret. Simply undo each step you took and rewind your turn to the point before you selected an action. Step 5. Trigger and react. Just because you have decided to act doesn't mean your opponents have to sit around and take it. After paying all costs, your action is added to the stem, where it will await resolution until all clones have had a chance to react. Whenever an action or reaction is added to the stem, follow these steps. Step 1. Trigger. Add effects to the stem which are triggered by the action or reaction. For example, adding an action to the stem may trigger whenever you play a card effects on state cards in your condition, such as this one. Whenever you play an idea card or react, inflict 1 physical damage. Step 2. React. In turn order, each clone may react or pass. If someone reacts, repeat from step 1. Once all clones have passed, you may proceed to the final step of taking an action. Step 6. Resolve effects. The brain stem connects cerebrium to the nervous system, transmuting thought into action. The final step of executing an action is to resolve all reactions, effects, and actions added to the stem in the reverse order from which they were added. This reverse order resolution method may seem familiar, but please note these details which are unique to Personal Vendetta. Reacting is not an action, and clones can only react with reaction cards, and not with attack cards, state cards, or activated effects. Once all clones have passed and the stem has been established, clones can no longer react. After resolving the effects of a reaction card, add that card to its controller's memories. When resolving triggered effects, do not move the triggering cards to a new zone. After resolving an attack card on the stem, add that card to its controller's memories. After resolving a state card on the stem, add that state to the active clone's condition. A turn consists of 3 phases, each containing 1 or more discrete steps which the active clone, or the player currently taking a turn, resolves in order: the start phase, main phase, and the end phase. Once the active clone completes the steps contained within all 3 phases, the next clone seated clockwise around the table takes their turn. The first phase of a clone's turn is the start phase. First, the active clone gains 2 ticks. Flip over their tick tokens from the blank side to the icon side to indicate their ticks remaining. On the first turn of the game in a 2-clone game, the active clone gains 1 tick instead of 2. Going first is an advantage, and this rule helps to address the imbalance. In multi-clone games, each clone gains 2 ticks during the start phase of their first turn, as usual. Next, the active clone resolves triggered effects if applicable. Certain cards contain the phrase "during your start phase" and are preceded by a trigger icon, which looks like this. The combination of this icon and phrase indicates an effect which you, as the active clone, must execute during the step. Naturally, cards you control, which read "during your start phase," and cards your opponents control, which read "during each opponent's start phase," both trigger during this phase of your turn. In any order you choose, resolve these effects and proceed to the next phase of your turn. After completing the upkeep steps of the start phase, move on to the main phase. During this phase, the active clone chooses and resolves actions until they have no ticks remaining. Choose actions from the menu of options described in the previous section of this video: take, play, and activate. Actions from this list may be taken in any order, any number of times, so long as the active clone can pay the required costs. This is not a prescribed list of steps. You are encouraged to strategically string together a sequence of actions which furthers your agenda. During this phase, you must spend all of your ticks, whether you'd like to or not. Even if you have no idea cards in your thoughts to play, and no states in your condition to activate, there are always cards in headspace for you to take. When you have no ticks remaining, you may choose to move to the end phase, but not before. Time must move forward. Whenever there are one or fewer idea cards in Headspace, immediately repress the remaining idea card and deal 4 new ideas from the top of your head into Headspace. This event supersedes all other rules, and if another effect would cause one or fewer ideas to exist in Headspace, interrupt that effect to refresh Headspace. After spending all ticks and choosing to end your main phase, proceed to the end phase. The first step of the end phase is the same as the final step of the start phase, resolve triggered effects. Similar to that step, certain cards contain the phrase, during your end phase. As in the start phase, resolve all applicable triggered effects during this step in the order of your choosing. The final step of a turn is to enforce the thought limit. During this step, the active clone is limited to holding a maximum of 4 idea cards in their thoughts, unless increased or reduced by an effect. If they have 5 or more idea cards, they must forget idea cards from their thoughts until they have ideas equal to their current limit. At every other point in the game, clones are allowed to have any number of idea cards in their thoughts. And thus concludes the rules explanation. The level of linguistic precision in this video may leave you with the impression that Personal Vendetta is a complicated game. However, nothing could be further from the truth. In general, during your turns, you will take your favorite cards from Headspace and play them from your thoughts, paying their costs, and reading their effects to discover what happens. That's it. That's the entire experience, repeated until most of you die. Some clones only feel comfortable making decisions in a game once they fully understand the options and consequences available to them. If this describes you, then I recommend reading the black boxed reference notes found in the rulebook or on the Interactive Rules website. Hopefully these details will help you grasp any nuances not found in this video or answer any questions which may arise during your first session. However, if watching to this point has you feeling overwhelmed and confused, fear not. The majority of cards have only 1 tick in their cost, so the simplest example of a turn would be to spend your first tick to take an idea card from Headspace into your thoughts, and the second tick to play that same card. I recommend first taking, then playing a card, any card, from Headspace during each of your turns just to learn what will happen. Strategy be damned. After a few turns, you'll pick up the basic flow of the game easily. I believe in you. At this point, you have enough information to confidently lead your friends, or enemies, through their first game of Personal Vendetta. However, remember that this video is not a comprehensive rulebook replacement. When questions arise, please refer to the rulebook or the rules website. Alright, I can tell you don't like reading since you're still here. I suppose I have a few more minutes to share a few of the most notable rules which may come up during your first session. The first is about resolving ties. Due to the self-destructive mechanics of Personal Vendetta, it is possible for all clones to die from the same effect. If this happens, the clone who controls the fatal effect is the winner. Note that the game-ending effect can happen out of turn order and before the active clone's action resolves. Revenge must be satisfied at all costs. Next, here's how to handle death in multi-clone games. Games with more than 2 clones are decided by the same method as dual clone games. Last clone standing wins. Whenever a clone dies in a multi-clone game, 2 things happen. First, the active clone adds a paranoia card to their condition. If a clone dies on their own turn, the next clone in turn order adds a paranoia card to their condition instead. Keep these cards in the box during gameplay and produce them only for this occasion. Second, the clone who died removes all of their cards from the stem and shuffles them together with their thoughts, condition, memories, and set-aside cards, and represses them, or adds them to the bottom of your head. Your game may end due to an empty head. In the unlikely event that Headspace needs to be refreshed and there were fewer than 4 idea cards in your head, the game ends. Award victory to the clone with the highest combined total of corpus and cerebrium. If there's a tie, the winner is the clone latest in turn order. After becoming comfortable with the rules, you may be curious to explore additional cards left in the game box up until now. You may optionally incorporate these cards into your game using rules called modules. Think of modules as miniature expansions included in the box. The first module I would like to talk about is called sets. All idea cards in Personal Vendetta are divided into mechanically or thematically similar groups called sets, usually containing exactly 16 cards each. A typical 16-card set includes 8 attack cards, 4 reaction cards, and 4 state cards. During the setup step earlier in this video, I instructed you to shuffle 2 or more sets together to create your head at the start of each game. Included in the core game box are 6 sets: Duel, Melee, Possibilities, Puppeteer, Agaku, and Ego. Mix and match as you like, or embrace the designer's choice option and combine your entire Personal Vendetta collection into one deck. The second module I would like to talk about is personas. Personal Vendetta can be enjoyed endlessly as a mirror image murder simulator. However, additional rules are available to add more character to your experience once you have mastered simpler configurations. The Personas module adds asymmetric starting conditions and persistent effects to each clone, and questions the boundary of identity. How much can I change and still be myself? Included in the core game box are 4 oversized persona cards, each of which shares the following elements. Each persona has a name which serves as a unique identifier of the particular cerebral copy you are piloting during the game. Each persona also belongs to a different faction in the universe of Personal Vendetta, noted here to help you get into character. Consider this additional flavor text, which has no effect on gameplay. Each persona has a logo which references aspects of their narrative and are color-coded to highlight their loose alignment toward either physical or mental strategies. When adding persona cards to your game, each clone begins with differing amounts of corpus, cerebrium, and idea cards in their thoughts. Consult the starting conditions region of your persona during setup and make appropriate adjustments to your starting resources. Just like idea cards, the effects of personas are divided into a desire and a fear. Both effects are considered in play at all times, just like any other activated, triggered, or static effect on a state card. A persona's desire represents the character's goals, strengths, and motivations, and their fear represents their anxieties, weaknesses, and motivations. Also like idea cards, personas have flavor text, which has no effect on gameplay, but serves to enrich the theme of the character instead. When setting up a game using personas, each clone selects a persona card in a manner suitable to the group. If participants can't agree, deal 1 persona randomly to each clone. Set each clone's starting corpus and cerebrium to the values depicted on their persona card, and add to their thoughts a number of idea cards from the top of their head equal to the value listed on their persona. Persona cards are not in your condition. They are in a separate and unique zone reserved for persona cards, and they can't change zones. Therefore, they can't be removed, added to your memories, thoughts, headspace, your head, or even set aside. Persona cards can't be chosen through card or game effects, and their activated effects can only be used on your turn by taking an activate action, just as with activated effects on state cards. Before we part, I would like to share a few of Personal Vendetta's themes to ponder during your next game. Personal Vendetta is about identity, self-improvement, and struggling against impossible odds. Imagine you embody a new, better version of yourself, and your opponents represent your current self. How will you overcome your flawed reflection and flourish? Will you improve by sculpting your mind into a new, better form, or will you carve away the cerebrium which holds you back?